The breaking point. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council stretched across half a kilometer of polished crystalline architecture, its transparent dome allowing the light of 3 distant suns to filter through in prismatic patterns. 217 species from across the known universe sat in tiered sections, their various appendages, breathing apparatuses, and translation devices creating a symphony of soft mechanical sounds that echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Elena Chen stood at the center platform, her simple blue uniform with the Earth insignia, a stark contrast to the ornate regalia of the Council representatives. At 48, Chen had spent 17 years representing humanity in this chamber, fighting for recognition, for respect, and most importantly, for humanity's right to determine its own path among the stars. Today would be her last appearance. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, Chen began, her voice clear and unwavering. For 73 years, humanity has walked among you. We have traded resources, shared cultural insights, and attempted to abide by your governance. Her gaze swept across the assembly, lingering momentarily on the Sith-Ari delegation with their translucent exoskeletons and the floating globes of the gaseous Mavorians. Yet for 73 years, we have also been treated as children playing with dangerous tools. Our research has been restricted, our colonial expansion limited, our military development scrutinized beyond reason. From the High Council's elevated platform, Supreme Mediator Xolox of the Drelvan Confederacy raised a limb, the iridescent scales catching the light. Ambassador Chen, we have only ever acted in the interest of galactic stability. Human advancement rates exceed all safety protocols established over 9 millennia of Council operation. Chen nodded, a small, tight gesture. Safety protocols designed by species whose natural evolution occurred over millions of years longer than ours. We understand caution, Supreme Mediator. What we cannot accept is suffocation. A murmur spread through the assembly. The Taurians shifted uncomfortably, their bovine features registering concern. The Lith Collective, having evolved from hive insects, broadcast disapproval through subtle pheromone shifts that their translation devices converted to audio signals. Let us be specific, Chen continued. Project Prometheus, a clean energy initiative that could have powered 17 struggling colony worlds, rejected because it employed principles too advanced for human implementation. The Ganymede Defense Grid, designed purely to protect miners from asteroid collisions, dismantled under Council order as potentially weaponizable technology. The quantum communication array that could have eliminated communication delays between distant human settlements, classified as strategic technology beyond humanity's maturity level. Those technologies had dual-use potential, came the rebuttal from Ambassador Thrix of the Silicon Conclave, their crystalline form refracting light as they spoke. The Council's millennium of experience has taught us caution, and humans have 4 million years of evolution, teaching us to survive. Chen's voice hardened. 3 weeks ago, our deep space reconnaissance detected something approaching from the galactic rim. Something that doesn't match any known signature in Council records. We brought this data to you. Unreliable data, interrupted Sub-Mediator Evox of the Sith-Ari. Your detection systems are primitive compared to Council standards. Systems we were forced to develop ourselves because you refused to share your advanced technology, Chen replied, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Systems that nonetheless detected what your border patrols missed. When we requested a joint expedition to investigate, the Council determined that diverting resources based on unverified human speculation would be irresponsible. Xolox stated, his tone final. Chen stood silent for a moment, letting the words hang in the vast chamber. Then she reached up to her collar and unpinned the silver insignia that marked her as a Council-recognized ambassador. Therefore, as of this moment, Earth and all human colonies officially withdraw from the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted. Dozens of species vocalizing simultaneously created a cacophony that overwhelmed translation systems. Some representatives rose from their seats, others activated emergency communication channels to their homeworlds. Supreme Mediator Solox raised all 4 limbs, calling for order. Ambassador Chen, this is an extreme overreaction. The protection of the Council has become a chain rather than a shield. Chen finished for him. Humanity would rather face the galaxy alone than remain hobbled by those who fear our potential more than they value our contribution. Only one figure moved toward Chen as the uproar continued. Ambassador Relorn of the HFY, one of the oldest species in the Council, and among the few who had consistently advocated for human interests. His aged, feathered body moved slowly down the steps until he stood before Chen. "This path leads to isolation, Elena," he said softly, using her first name in violation of Council protocol. "The galaxy is more dangerous than you know." Chen's expression softened slightly. "Then perhaps it needs what humans do best, old friend, facing danger rather than hiding from it." She placed the insignia in his outstretched appendage. "When the storm comes from the rim, and it will come, remember that we tried to warn you." Chen turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the momentary lull that had fallen over the chamber. Before reaching the grand doors, she paused and looked back. "You've always feared what humanity might become without your restraints. You're about to find out." The doors closed behind her with a resonant thud that seemed to punctuate her final statement. Outside, Captain Maya Okafor of the Earth diplomatic vessel Horizon waited, her dark uniform bearing no Council insignia, only the emblem of the United Earth Space Force. "It's done?" Okafor asked, though she could read the answer in Chen's expression. "It's done," Chen confirmed, feeling both a weight lifted and a new one settled upon her shoulders. "Inform Earth Command. Operation Unbounded begins immediately." As they walked toward their ship, Okafor's comm unit chimed. She checked the display and frowned. "Ambassador, we're receiving emergency transmissions from the Proxima Centauri colony. They're reporting unusual activity at the edge of their system. Ships of unknown configuration." Chen's steps faltered for only a moment. "How many?" "Initial count suggests 17 vessels, none matching Council registry." Chen quickened her pace. "The storm arrives sooner than expected. Take us out of Council space, maximum speed. We need to reach the defense fleet." Within the Council chamber, the representatives continued their heated debate about the human withdrawal. Some expressed relief that the unpredictable species would no longer have access to Council technology. Others worried about the economic impact of losing trade with the resourceful humans. A few voiced concern about what humans might develop without oversight. Only Relorn of the HFY sat silent, the human insignia clutched in his appendage, his ancient eyes focused on the distant stars visible through the dome. In his 900 years of life, he had witnessed enough history to recognize its pivotal moments. This, he felt certain, was one of them. "May wisdom guide them," he whispered in his native tongue, untranslated. "For I fear we will need what they become." On the horizon, Elena Chen watched through the viewport as the Council station receded into the distance. 73 years of attempted cooperation ended not with the hoped-for partnership, but with a severing of ties that felt both tragic and necessary. Her secure terminal lit up with a priority message from Earth Command. The intelligence she had fought to present to the Council, data about the approaching unknown entities, had been verified by 3 additional human outposts. The threat was real, it was significant, and it was accelerating toward inhabited space. "Set course for Earth," Chen ordered, "and inform the Admiralty to begin deployment of the Phoenix Protocol." "The untested defense technologies?" Okafor asked, surprise evident in her voice. "The ones we developed in secret." Chen nodded grimly. "The Council feared what we might create if unleashed. Now they'll have to hope it's enough to save us all." As the horizon jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving Council space behind, the first wave of what would later be called the Void Collective crossed the boundary of charted space, their vessels black against the starfield, silent and purposeful. The 73-year era of human restriction had ended. The age of human necessity was about to begin. The shadow approaches. 5 years passed swiftly for humanity. Free from Council restrictions, Earth and its colonies experienced a renaissance of technological advancement. The Phoenix Protocol, once a desperate contingency plan, had expanded into a comprehensive defense and research initiative that transformed human presence in space. New colony worlds doubled their population as advanced terraforming techniques accelerated habitation. Quantum communication networks eliminated the isolation of distant settlements. Defense systems that would have horrified the Council now protected human space. But on the edge of that space, Captain Maya Okafor, now commanding the advanced scout ship Pathfinder, watched with grim satisfaction as her worst fears were confirmed. Record everything. She ordered her crew as they maintained their position just outside the sensor range of the conflict. Earth Command needs to see this. Before them, the Taurian colony world of Nilox IV burned. The once peaceful agricultural planet had become a battleground between Council defense forces and the Void Collective, the very threat humans had warned about 5 years earlier. Lieutenant Seto magnified the tactical display. Council ships are being torn apart. Their shield technology can't withstand the energy weapons the Collective is using. Okafor nodded. The Council standardized their defensive systems centuries ago. They've had no real war to drive innovation. This is the result. Receiving distress calls from the colony, Communications Officer Chen reported. Civilian evacuations are failing. The Collective has established orbital blockades. Okafor's jaw tightened. How many civilians? Population records show approximately 4 million Taurians plus associated Council species. For a moment, the bridge fell silent as they watched another Council cruiser disintegrate under concentrated fire. Captain, Strategic Officer Patel spoke up. I know we're under orders to observe only, but those are civilians down there. Okafor finished for him. I know. She took a deep breath. Tactical, how close is the nearest human battle group? Battle Group Themis is 18 hours out at maximum FTL. Okafor made her decision. Notify them of our situation and request immediate reinforcement. Then bring us in closer. Stealth systems at maximum. Let's see if we can get some of those civilians out before the Collective completes their blockade. As the Pathfinder slipped invisible toward the besieged planet, a very different scene unfolded in the Galactic Council's emergency session chamber. Supreme Mediator Xolox, looking noticeably aged since humanity's departure, addressed the assembled representatives with uncharacteristic urgency. The situation has become untenable, he stated, his normally melodic voice strained. In the past 3 months, we have lost contact with 17 outer colony worlds. The defensive fleet at Nilox IV has failed to report in for 72 hours. Our attempts to communicate with the Void Collective have been met with either silence or destruction. Ambassador Thrix of the Silicon Conclave projected a holographic map showing the advance of the Collective through Council space. At their current rate of progression, they will reach core worlds within 6 months. Our combined defensive capabilities are the crystalline being hesitated, insufficient. The chamber, once a place of measured debate and centuries-long deliberation, now hummed with fear. What do these invaders want? Demanded the representative of the Mavorian gas clouds. Have we determined their objectives? The intelligence director, a Zithari named Elov, floated forward. Based on observations of conquered worlds, they appear to strip planets of specific resources, particularly rare metals and certain biological compounds. They leave minimal infrastructure intact, suggesting they may colonize after resource extraction. And the inhabitants? Asked a representative from the arthropoid, Kexhive. Elov's translucent form dimmed slightly. No survivors have been documented on any world where the Collective completes its operations. Panic threatened to overwhelm the assembly until Ambassador Relorn of the Azurai raised his ancient feathered form. Despite his advanced age of nearly a millennium, his voice carried authority born of experience. We all know what must be discussed, he said firmly. The humans warned us of this threat. Their reconnaissance detected the Collective before our own sensors. Perhaps they have developed defenses we now lack. A murmur of discomfort passed through the chamber. Supreme Mediator Xolox's scales flickered with agitation. "The humans withdrew from our protection," he stated. "They chose isolation." "After we chose to ignore their warnings," Relorn countered. "After decades of restricting their development while benefiting from their resources and creativity." The Lith Collective released a cloud of pheromones that their translator converted. "The humans may not even respond to our communication. We systematically undermined their initiatives for 7 decades. We must try," Relorn insisted. "My species has witnessed 3 existential threats to this council over our history. Each time, survival required adapting to changing circumstances. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford." In the tense silence that followed, a junior communications officer burst into the chamber, a breach of protocol that immediately captured everyone's attention. "Forgive the interruption," the young Drelvan said, "but we've received an emergency transmission from the edge of the Nilox system. A human vessel has been observed extracting civilians from the colony." The chamber erupted in surprised exclamations. "Humans at Nilox?" Xolox demanded. "Are they attacking?" As the collective opened fire, the human vessels didn't evade. Instead, they activated their metamaterial hulls, which absorbed the energy attacks and redirected them through specialized conduits. The flagship Thermopylae took 3 direct hits from the collective's most powerful weapons and emerged unscathed. Then the humans counterattacked. From the Thermopylae deployed waves of autonomous combat drones, each no larger than a human hand but coordinated in swarms of thousands. They surrounded collective vessels, interfering with sensors, disrupting weapon targeting, and exploiting microscopic weaknesses in hull integrity. Smaller human vessels executed maneuvers that Council ships couldn't physically perform: tight turns, rapid accelerations, and combat patterns that seemed to defy both physics and logic. Their weapons were equally unconventional. Instead of the standard energy beams used by both Council and collective forces, humans deployed graviton implosion charges that, as the evacuation shuttle streamed up from the surface of Nilox IV carrying thousands of grateful Taurians, news of the human intervention spread across Council communication channels. In the emergency session chamber, representatives watched in stunned silence as tactical feeds showed human forces driving back an enemy that had effortlessly destroyed their own defenses. Relorn of the Asherai stepped forward once more. "I move that we immediately dispatch a diplomatic delegation to Earth with the authority to negotiate a mutual defense pact against the Void Collective." Supreme Mediator Xolox, watching the human ships systematically dismantle the invaders that had terrified the Council for months, could only nod in agreement. "The motion carries," he said quietly. "May we hope it is not too late to mend what was broken." As Battle Group Themis secured the Nilox system, Admiral Vega received word that a Council diplomatic vessel was requesting permission to approach Earth. "Interesting timing," she remarked to her bridge crew. "Now that they need us, they're ready to talk." Her executive officer frowned. "After how they treated us for decades, should we even listen?" Vega watched as the last of the collective ships in the system were neutralized by human forces. "We'll listen," she decided. "But this time, we negotiate as equals, not as children to be controlled." The message was relayed to Earth Command, where Alina Chen, now Earth's Director of Interstellar Relations, prepared to meet the Council representatives she had walked away from 5 years earlier. The balance of power had shifted. The Council had feared what humanity might become without their restraints. Now they would have to face what humanity had become, and hope it would be enough to save them all. Reluctant allies. The Council diplomatic vessel Concordia descended through Earth's atmosphere with an escort of human fighters flanking it on all sides. From the viewport, Supreme Mediator Xolox observed the sprawling cityscape of New Geneva, Earth's diplomatic capital. The human metropolis had changed dramatically in the 5 years since the withdrawal. Gleaming towers of advanced materials stretched skyward, connected by transparent transit tubes where vehicles moved at impossible speeds. Energy fields shimmered around key structures, and orbital defense platforms were clearly visible even from the surface. They have advanced significantly, noted Ambassador Thrix of the Silicon Conclave, their crystalline form reflecting sunlight in prismatic patterns. More than should have been possible in such a short time. Ambassador Relorn nodded his feathered head, because they were already developing these technologies in secret, even while under Council restrictions. They simply needed freedom to implement them. Solox's scales darkened with discomfort, a concerning realization. One might say, Relorn replied softly, that our fear of human potential drove them to fulfill that very potential in ways we could not control. The Concordia landed on a dedicated platform adjacent to Earth's interstellar relations complex. A small delegation awaited them, not the grand ceremonial reception that Council dignitaries had once expected as their due. At the center stood Director Elena Chen, the former ambassador who had walked away from the Council 5 years earlier. Flanking her were military, scientific, and political representatives of the United Earth government. As the Council delegation descended the ramp, Chen stepped forward. Supreme Mediator Solox, ambassadors, welcome to Earth. Solox inclined his upper body in the Drelvan gesture of respect, something he had rarely offered to humans during Chen's time on the Council. Director Chen, we thank you for receiving us despite past disagreements. The present crisis supersedes old grievances, Chen replied diplomatically, though her eyes remained cool. Please, join us in the conference chamber. We have much to discuss. The meeting room was a marvel of human engineering. A circular chamber with walls of programmable matter that could display information in formats readable to any species. The table itself contained embedded technology that allowed instantaneous translation without the need for external devices. Once seated, Chen activated the central holographic display. Let's dispense with diplomatic niceties. You're here because the Void Collective has overwhelmed your defenses, while our battle group Themis demonstrated effective countermeasures at Nilox IV. Solox's throat sac pulsed, a sign of Drelvan distress. Your assessment is accurate, if blunt. The Council faces an existential threat beyond our capacity to address with current resources and technology. A threat we warned you about 5 years ago, noted Admiral Jackson, the human military representative, his dark face impassive. Ambassador Thrix's crystalline form vibrated slightly. We acknowledge this error in judgment. However, recrimination serves no constructive purpose now. Perhaps not, Chen agreed. But understanding how we arrived at this point is essential to determining where we go from here. She gestured, and the holographic display changed to show the known territory of the Void Collective. Our intelligence indicates they have conquered 23 Council worlds in the past 6 months. Their rate of expansion is accelerating. How did you obtain this intelligence? Asked Solox. These systems are beyond your territory. Admiral Jackson exchanged glances with Chen before responding. We never fully withdrew our reconnaissance assets from Council space. We maintained a monitoring network to track the threat we knew was coming. The Council representatives shifted uncomfortably, realizing that human surveillance had been operating throughout their territory without detection. What else have you been monitoring? Thrix asked pointedly. Only what was necessary to protect ourselves, Chen stated firmly. Unlike the Council, we don't interfere with the internal affairs of other civilizations. Relorn, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. What the humans mean to say, though politeness restrains them, is that they continued to protect us even after we rejected their warnings. An uncomfortable silence settled over the room. We propose a mutual defense agreement, Solox finally said. Council resources and territory combined with human military technology and expertise. Chen nodded. We anticipated this request. However, Earth's leadership has concerns about entering an alliance with the same entity that spent 7 decades restraining our development. What assurances do you require? Solox asked. Chen touched the table, and a document appeared before each delegate. The Autonomy Accord, a new framework for cooperation that explicitly recognizes human independence and self-determination. No restrictions on our research, colonization, or defense initiatives. Joint operations against the collective, but with independent command structures. The Council representatives read through the document with increasing alarm. These terms would fundamentally alter the relationship between Earth and the Council. Solox said slowly. "The old relationship is dead," Chen replied without emotion. "It died the day you dismissed our warnings about the collective. We're offering a new one. As equals, not as subordinates." "And if we cannot accept these terms?" Thrix asked. Admiral Jackson leaned forward. "Then we will continue to defend human space against the collective. We'll even evacuate Council civilians when possible, as we did at Nilox. But we won't commit our forces to a broader war under Council authority." The implied message was clear: accept human autonomy, or face the collective alone. Relorn raised a gnarled appendage. "If I may speak freely, the Council has existed for 9 millennia. In that time, we have developed protocols and hierarchies that served us well in an era of relative peace. But the Void Collective represents a threat unlike any we have faced in recent memory. Perhaps it is time to acknowledge that different challenges require different approaches." He turned to his fellow Council members. "The humans have demonstrated both the capability to fight this enemy and the compassion to save those who once dismissed them. I believe we should accept their terms." After several hours of negotiation over specific details, the Modified Autonomy Accord was finalized. As the Council representatives prepared to return to their vessel to communicate the agreement to the full Council, Solox approached Chen privately. "There is one matter we have not addressed," the Supreme Mediator said quietly. "How did you develop such advanced defensive technology so quickly?" Chen studied the alien leader for a moment before responding. "We didn't start when we left the Council, Supreme Mediator. Humanity has always prepared for worst-case scenarios. The Phoenix Protocol, our comprehensive defense initiative, began the day we first contacted alien life. For millennia, humans fought only each other. We developed a certain proficiency for it. You maintained military research despite Council regulations." Solox's scales darkened further. "We compartmentalized it. The public programs complied with Council restrictions, but Earth's governments always maintained classified research. We hoped never to need it." Chen's expression hardened. The Council feared human weapons, but failed to recognize that innovation itself is our greatest weapon. And now, ironically, it may be your salvation. 2 days later, the full Galactic Council voted to accept the Autonomy Accord. News of the alliance spread rapidly through both human and Council space. On the front lines, human and Council forces began integrating operations against the expanding Void Collective threat. Battlegroup Artemis, another advanced human fleet, rendezvoused with the remaining Council defense forces at Proxima Station, a major Council military hub now serving as the Joint Command Center for the Alliance. Admiral Helena Vega stood in the station's Strategic Operations Center, surrounded by tactical displays and officers from a dozen different species. The integration was not proceeding smoothly. "Your battle formations are unnecessarily complex," complained Commander Zex of the Taurian Defense Force. "Our captains have trained for centuries using standardized Council tactics." Vega suppressed her frustration. "Standardized tactics that the collective has already adapted to. Their artificial intelligence systems have mapped your response patterns. Predictability equals vulnerability." "Admiral," interrupted a human communications officer, "we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Meridian colony in the Ta City system. Collective forces have breached their outer defenses." Vega turned to the tactical display. "Ta City. That's only 4 light years from this position. How did they penetrate so far into Council space without detection?" Zex looked uncomfortable. "Our sensor network in that sector was repurposed after human withdrawal. Resources were needed elsewhere." Vega bit back a sharp response. This was the 3rd time she discovered crucial defensive infrastructure had been dismantled after humanity left the Council. "Prepare for immediate deployment," she ordered. "Meridian is a major population center. Millions of lives are at stake." As the joint fleet prepared for faster-than-light transit to the Ta-City system, Vega called her human officers for a private briefing. "The Council forces aren't ready for this engagement," she told them bluntly. "Their tactics are outdated, their technology is inferior, and their command structure is too rigid for rapid adaptation." "What are your orders, Admiral?" asked Captain Rodriguez of the cruiser Thermopylae. Vega's expression was grim. "Deploy Guardian Protocol. We'll take the lead position and absorb the initial collective assault. Council ships will provide perimeter support and civilian evacuation only. They won't like being sidelined," Rodriguez noted. "This isn't about pride anymore," Vega replied. "It's about survival." The journey to Ta-City took less than 6 hours using human quantum drive technology, a transit that would have required days with Council engines. When they arrived, the situation was worse than reported. 15 collective warships had formed a blockade around Meridian, while surface forces had already begun resource extraction operations in the planet's major cities. Commander Zek stared at the tactical display in horror. "We're too late. Our standard protocol would be to establish a counter-blockade and call for reinforcements, while millions die on the surface." Vega shook her head. "That's not how humans operate." She opened a channel to all ships in the joint fleet. "This is Admiral Vega. Human vessels will execute hammerfall formation. Council ships will maintain position at these coordinates and prepare to receive evacuees. Any Council vessel that enters the combat zone does so at their own risk." Without waiting for acknowledgement, the human battle group accelerated toward Meridian, their advanced drives pushing them to speeds that made Council engineers stare in disbelief. "What are they doing?" Zex demanded. "They're outnumbered." On his view screen, the 15 collective warships turned to face the approaching human fleet. Energy weapons charged, targeting systems locked. What happened next would be recorded in Council military archives as the Meridian Revelation, the moment when Council observers first truly understood what humanity had become in their absence. As well. "No, Supreme Mediator. According to the transmission, they are evacuating Taurian civilians. They appear to be using some form of advanced stealth technology to bypass the collective blockade." All eyes turned to the Taurian representative, whose bovine features registered shock. "We have received no communication from the humans about this intervention." Relorn's aged eyes gleamed. "Perhaps they do not require our permission to do what is right." Back at Nilox IV, the Pathfinder had managed 3 stealth runs to the surface, extracting nearly 2,000 Taurian civilians from the devastation. Captain Okafor stood on the bridge, reviewing tactical data as her crew coordinated the evacuation. "Collective forces are concentrating on the Council defense stations," Lieutenant Sato reported. "They haven't detected us yet, but our stealth systems are reaching thermal limits. One more run is all we can manage before we need to withdraw to cooldown." Okafor nodded. "Make it count. Priority to the children and medical personnel in Zone 4. As the Pathfinder prepared for its final extraction run, a massive energy signature appeared at the edge of the system. "Captain," Tactical Officer Rivera called out. "Multiple FTL signatures detected. It's Battle Group Themis. They've arrived 14 hours ahead of schedule." Okafor felt a surge of relief. "Open a secure channel." The view screen activated to show the stern face of Admiral Helena Vega, commanding officer of the most advanced battle group in the human fleet. "Captain Okafor," Vega acknowledged. "Your distress call reached us during testing of the new quantum slitstream drive. Seems like we arrived just in time." "Admiral, there are still thousands of civilians trapped on the surface. Council forces are completely overwhelmed." Vega nodded grimly. "We've analyzed your tactical data. Battle Group Themis will engage the collective vessels and create a corridor for evacuation. Your Pathfinder will coordinate extraction with our Drak ships. The Council might interpret this as a violation of the withdrawal agreement," Okafor cautioned. A cold smile touched Vega's lips. Let them. Humanity protects the innocent, regardless of species. Besides, I think they'll be grateful enough once they see what we're bringing to this fight. The transmission ended, and Okafor turned to her crew. You heard the Admiral. Let's show the Collective and the Council what humans do best. Within minutes, the 12 ships of Battle Group Themis deployed into attack formation. Unlike the bulky, standardized vessels of the Council fleet, each human ship displayed a sleek, aggressive design optimized for both speed and combat effectiveness. Their black hulls, embedded with adaptive metamaterials, absorbed rather than reflected sensor scans, making them appear as vague shadows even when not using active stealth. The flagship, Thermopylae, moved to the center position. Nearly a kilometer in length, it represented the pinnacle of human military engineering developed during the 5 years of unrestricted research. Surrounding it were the specialized vessels of the battle group, electronic warfare platforms, kinetic strike cruisers, and the smaller but devastatingly effective Harrier-class interceptors. From the Council's remaining defense station, Commodore Lax of the Taurian Defense Force watched in astonishment as the human battle group accelerated toward the collective fleet. They're going to be slaughtered, he muttered, having already witnessed the ineffectiveness of Council weapons against the invaders. But as the collective vessels turned to engage this new threat, something unexpected happened. The human ships didn't fire energy weapons or conventional projectiles. Instead, they released swarms of small, autonomous drones that surrounded the collective vessels in clouds of metallic motes. What are they doing? Lax wondered aloud. His question was answered moments later when the collective fired their devastating energy weapons, only to have the beams splinter and dissipate harmlessly against invisible barriers projected by the drone swarms. Then the human ships opened fire with weapons unlike anything the Council had developed. Graviton implosion charges that bypassed shields entirely, tearing collective vessels apart from within. Quantum disruptor beams that severed molecular bonds in targeted sections of enemy hulls. And worst of all, nanite warheads that converted the very material of collective ships into more nanites that continued the destruction. In 20 minutes, half the collective fleet had been neutralized. The remainder began a fighting retreat, attempting to regroup into a defensive formation. On the Pathfinder, Okafor watched with a mixture of pride and vindication. This is why the Council feared us, she said quietly to her XO. Not because we're violent, but because we adapt too quickly. We solve problems they'd spend centuries debating.